Have you ever felt something strange in your home, that inexplicable heaviness that seems to linger in certain rooms? Perhaps you've woken up in the middle of the night with an overwhelming sensation of unease, your heart racing for no apparent reason. Maybe you've noticed that no matter how much you pray, there's a persistent feeling of spiritual blockage, as if something is preventing God's peace from fully entering your home. Imagine this. It's 3 a.m. and you suddenly awaken. The house is silent, yet something feels wrong. You look around your bedroom. Everything appears normal, but deep inside, you sense a presence, a heaviness that wasn't there before. Or perhaps you've noticed that every time you enter a specific room in your house, you feel an instant chill, a subtle feeling of anxiety that you can't explain. Maybe your family has been experiencing more frequent arguments, unexplained health issues, or a general sense of spiritual disconnection. What if I told you that these aren't random occurrences, but potential signs of spiritual interference? Padre Pio, one of the most spiritually gifted saints of our time, spent his life battling against dark spiritual forces. Through his profound mystical experiences, including bearing the wounds of Christ, he gained extraordinary insight into how the enemy operates in our everyday lives. He consistently warned that the devil doesn't need a formal invitation to enter our homes. Instead, he looks for subtle entryways, often through objects we consider harmless or even beneficial. What most people don't realize is that certain items in our homes can act as spiritual conductors, creating openings for negative influences to enter and disrupt our peace, our relationships, and our connection with God. These objects might seem innocent or merely decorative, but they can carry spiritual weight that affects everything around them. Today, I'm going to reveal the 5 objects that, according to Padre Pio's teachings, may be attracting demonic influences into your home. What you learn in the next few minutes could completely transform the spiritual atmosphere of your house and restore God's protective blessing over your family. These aren't just theories. Countless families have experienced profound spiritual renewal after removing these items from their homes. Stay with me until the end, because the final object I'll reveal is often the most overlooked, yet potentially the most dangerous. Your decision to act on this information could be the turning point your family has been praying for. If you've been feeling that something isn't right in your home, or if you want to ensure your space is spiritually protected, type, "I want protection," in the comments below. Let's begin this journey of spiritual cleansing together. The first category of objects that Padre Pio warned could invite negative spiritual forces into your home may be sitting innocently on your bookshelf right now. These are occult, esoteric, and certain spiritual books that contain teachings contrary to authentic Christian faith. Padre Pio once said, "The enemy hides in the details." This profound statement reveals how subtle the entry points for spiritual darkness can be. Books on witchcraft, sorcery, and the occult are obvious concerns. But what about those seemingly harmless books on astrology, tarot reading, crystal healing, or certain Eastern mystical practices? What about those popular novels that glorify paranormal activities, vampirism, or demonic powers, presenting them as exciting or romantic? Many people keep these books out of curiosity or entertainment value, not realizing the spiritual doorways they might be opening. Even items related to these practices, tarot cards, Ouija boards, crystal balls, certain figurines and amulets carry spiritual imprints that can disturb the peace in your home. Let me share something I've witnessed firsthand. There was a family, let's call them the Andersons, a devoted Christian household that seemed to be experiencing an unusual amount of conflict. Their teenage children were increasingly rebellious. Nightmares plagued family members, and a general sense of heaviness permeated their home. Despite regular prayer and church attendance, their home life continued to deteriorate. During a home blessing, Their pastor noticed several books on the family bookshelf about communicating with the dead, along with a collection of crystals the mother had received as a gift and kept for their beauty. The pastor gently explained the potential spiritual influence these items might have. Initially skeptical, the family decided to remove these items as an act of faith. Within weeks, the atmosphere in their home transformed. The constant tension dissipated. Their sleep improved dramatically, and family members reported feeling a lightness they hadn't experienced in years. Their prayer life, once feeling blocked and mechanical, became vibrant and meaningful again. The mother later said, "I never would have connected our family problems to those innocent items. I kept them solely for their aesthetic value, not realizing the spiritual weight they carried." This isn't about superstition. It's about spiritual discernment. Father Pio taught that certain objects can be consecrated to darkness, either intentionally by their creators or through their inherent connection to practices that open doors to spiritual realms outside of God's protection. Take a moment now to mentally walk through your home. Do you have books on magic, fortune-telling, or communicating with spirits? Do you possess objects used for divination, meditation focused on emptying yourself, or items specifically designed for non-Christian spiritual practices? Even gifts from well-meaning friends might carry spiritual attachments you're unaware of. If you've identified such items in your home, here's what Father Pio would advise. Don't sell these items, as that would simply transfer any negative spiritual influence to someone else. Instead, destroy them completely or dispose of them in a way they cannot be recovered. Afterward, pray over the spaces where these items were kept, asking for God's purification and protection. Remember, this isn't about fear. It's about creating a spiritually safe environment for you and your loved ones. As you remove these objects, invite God's presence to fill those spaces instead. The void left by removing negative influences should be filled with positive spiritual elements. Prayer, scripture, and blessed items that invite divine protection. Now let's move on to the second category of objects that could be affecting your home's spiritual atmosphere. And you might be surprised at what's hiding in plain sight on your walls and shelves. The second category of objects that Father Pio warned about might be hanging on your walls or sitting on your shelves right now, seemingly innocent images and decorations that carry hidden spiritual significance. Have you ever walked into a room and felt an immediate sense of unease without knowing why? Or noticed that a particular area of your home feels different from the rest? Father Pio was extraordinarily sensitive to the spiritual influence of images. He taught that what we surround ourselves with visually has a profound impact on our souls, often in ways we don't consciously recognize. And images speak to the soul more directly than words, Father Pio would say. Indeed, they bypass our rational mind and plant seeds directly in our spiritual consciousness. This understanding reveals why certain artwork, statues, masks, and decorative items can have such a powerful effect on the atmosphere of our homes. Let's be specific about what types of images and decorations might be problematic. Tribal masks or artifacts used in non-Christian religious ceremonies often retain spiritual connections to their original purpose. Artwork depicting demonic or grotesque figures, even when considered artistic or cultural, can project spiritual dissonance into your living space. Images glorifying violence, death, or sexual immorality may seem merely decorative, but can subtly influence the spiritual climate of your home. Ancient idols or statues of deities from other religions aren't simply cultural artifacts. They were designed as conduits for spiritual veneration. Even replicas of these items carry the symbolic weight of their original purpose. Modern items with occult symbols, pentagrams, certain geometric patterns with occult significance, images of the third eye, or other New Age symbols may seem trendy, but carry spiritual implications. Consider your home's decorations carefully. That statue you purchased as a souvenir from an exotic vacation, do you know its spiritual significance in its culture of origin? That interesting artwork with symbols you don't fully understand. Have you researched what those symbols represent spiritually? Even children's toys or decorations featuring creatures associated with darkness, certain types of dragons, monsters, or mythical beings with occult associations merit careful consideration. Father Pio recommended surrounding ourselves with images that elevate our thoughts toward God, sacred art, icons, or images that inspire virtue and goodness. These don't need to be overtly religious to be spiritually positive. Beautiful landscapes, artwork celebrating family and wholesome human connections, or images that evoke peace and tranquility can all contribute to a spiritually healthy environment. I encourage you to walk through your home with fresh eyes. Look at each piece of artwork, each decorative item, and ask yourself, does this bring light or darkness into my home? Does it align with my spiritual values? What is the spiritual origin or message of this item? Trust your intuition in this process. That sense of unease you may feel around certain objects is often the Holy Spirit's gentle guidance. For items you identify as potentially problematic, consider replacing them with alternatives that bring peace and elevate the spirit. Create a home environment that nurtures your soul rather than subtly undermining your spiritual well-being. If you're finding this guidance helpful and wish to deepen your understanding of spiritual protection for your home and family, I have something special to offer you. Our e-book, The Spiritual Secrets of Saint. Padre Pio contains powerful prayers, reflections based on his teachings, and practical advice to strengthen your spirituality. This resource explores Father Pio's profound insights into spiritual warfare and provides specific prayers for home protection, personal deliverance, and family blessing. To access this life-changing material, simply click the link pinned in the comments below. Many have testified how this resource has transformed their spiritual lives and brought newfound peace to their homes. Now let's continue with our exploration of objects that may be affecting your home's spiritual atmosphere. Now let's move on to the third category of potentially harmful influences, something most of us engage with daily without considering its spiritual impact. The third category that Father Pio warned could invite spiritual darkness into our homes is something most of us encounter daily: entertainment with negative spiritual influences. This includes certain types of music, movies, television shows, video games, and other media that may seem harmless but carry hidden spiritual dangers. Father Pio was remarkably prescient about the power of what enters through our senses. He often cautioned, our eyes and ears should be vigilant guardians, allowing in only what glorifies God. Though he lived in a simpler time, his wisdom applies even more urgently in our media-saturated world, where we constantly consume content that shapes our spiritual sensitivity. Not all entertainment is problematic, of course, but certain types deserve careful discernment. Music with lyrics that glorify violence, sexual exploitation, satanic references, or the occult doesn't merely entertain, it gradually desensitizes the soul to spiritual darkness. Horror movies that feature demonic possession, witchcraft, or occult rituals can serve as a form of vicarious participation in these activities. Video games that immerse players in dark spiritual narratives or occult practices can blur the line between entertainment and spiritual engagement. Even seemingly innocent entertainment can sometimes contain subtle spiritual messages that undermine faith or glorify values contrary to spiritual health. The danger isn't always in explicit content. Sometimes it's in the worldview being subtly promoted. Let me share a powerful testimony that illustrates this principle. A young woman, we'll call her Rebecca, struggled with persistent nightmares, unexplained anxiety, and a feeling of spiritual oppression that seemed to follow her everywhere. Despite being a person of faith who prayed regularly, she felt a constant spiritual heaviness she couldn't explain. During a spiritual retreat, she mentioned her love for certain horror movies and dark-themed music to her spiritual advisor. Though she considered these merely entertainment, just movies and just music, Her advisor suggested an experiment. For 1 month, she would avoid all entertainment with occult, demonic, or excessively violent themes. Rebecca was skeptical, but agreed to try. Within 2 weeks, she noticed her nightmares had stopped completely. By the end of the month, the persistent anxiety that had plagued her for years had diminished significantly. She described feeling spiritually lighter and found her prayer life deepening in ways she hadn't experienced before. "I never connected my entertainment choices with my spiritual struggles," she said. "Or I thought I was strong enough that it wouldn't affect me. I didn't realize how much those images and sounds were influencing my spiritual atmosphere." This doesn't mean we must avoid all secular entertainment. Rather, it calls us to be mindful consumers, recognizing that what we repeatedly expose ourselves to will inevitably shape our spiritual sensitivity. As Father Pio would say, what you feed grows, and what you starve dies. When we regularly feed our minds with darkness, we shouldn't be surprised when darkness grows within our spiritual space. I invite you to evaluate your entertainment choices with new awareness. What kind of music fills your home? What movies or shows do you watch regularly? What images from this entertainment linger in your mind? Pay attention to how you feel spiritually during and after consuming different types of media. That subtle heaviness or unease might be your spirit recognizing something your conscious mind has overlooked. Consider creating boundaries around entertainment in your home. Perhaps designate certain spaces as free from potentially problematic media. Be particularly vigilant about what entertainment is accessible to children whose spiritual sensitivity is still developing and who may be more vulnerable to negative influences. Most importantly, fill your home with alternatives that elevate rather than degrade, music that inspires, films that celebrate goodness and truth, and stories that illuminate rather than darken the human experience. Now let's move to our fourth category, one that might surprise you because it involves objects that often enter our homes through acts of love and generosity. The fourth category of objects that Father Pio cautioned about might surprise you because they often come into our homes through gestures of love or family connection, gifts and inherited items that carry spiritual attachments from their previous owners. This concept might seem unusual at first, but Father Pio was particularly sensitive to how objects can retain spiritual imprints. He regularly advised, not everything given with good intentions carries good spiritual energy. Father Pio would frequently recommend that all new items brought into the home be blessed before use, a practice born from his profound understanding of how spiritual influences can transfer through physical objects. Consider this: objects witness the lives of their owners. They're present during moments of joy, anger, despair, or spiritual practices. In the mysterious way that science cannot yet explain, but spiritual traditions have recognized for millennia, objects can absorb and retain something of these energies. This is particularly true of personal items that have been in close contact with someone for extended periods. Jewelry, clothing, furniture, and especially items used in any form of spiritual practice. When might you be concerned about a gift or inherited item? Pay attention to any object that, once brought into your home, coincides with unusual changes. Perhaps family arguments intensify, sleep becomes disturbed, or you experience unexplained feelings of heaviness or unease. An object that gives you an inexplicable sense of discomfort may be carrying spiritual baggage you're intuitively sensing. Be particularly discerning about antiques with unknown histories, items from cultures with strong spiritual practices different from your own. Jewelry worn during significant life events, especially negative ones, and anything previously owned by someone involved in occult practices. Even seemingly innocent heirlooms might carry the spiritual residue of family trauma, addiction, or unresolved anger. This isn't about rejecting family treasures or becoming suspicious of every gift. Rather, it's about developing spiritual discernment. Many inherited items and gifts bring genuine blessing and positive connections. The key is learning to distinguish between them. If you suspect an item might be carrying negative spiritual influence, consider these steps. First, pray for discernment about the object. Trust your spiritual intuition. If something consistently feels wrong, despite its apparent innocence, take that seriously. For items you wish to keep, consider having them blessed by a priest or pastor. This spiritual cleansing can remove negative attachments while preserving the positive connection the item represents. For items that continue to feel spiritually troubling, even after blessing, it may be wisest to respectfully remove them from your home. This doesn't require dramatic disposal. Simply moving them to storage outside your living space might be sufficient. For particularly problematic items, more definitive disposal might be necessary. Remember that your primary responsibility is to maintain a spiritually healthy environment for yourself and your family. While respecting the intentions behind gifts and honoring family connections through heirlooms is important, these considerations should not override spiritual well-being. Father Pio taught that our homes should be sanctuaries, places of spiritual safety and divine peace. Each object we bring into this sanctuary either contributes to or detracts from this purpose. By being mindful about the histories and spiritual qualities of the items we accept, we maintain the spiritual integrity of our home. As we move to our fifth and final category, prepare yourself for what Father Pio considered perhaps the most direct invitation to spiritual darkness. Items connected to behaviors that weaken our spiritual defenses and create openings for negative influences. The fifth and final category of objects that Father Pio warned about is perhaps the most direct invitation to spiritual darkness. Items associated with various forms of vice and addiction that create significant spiritual vulnerabilities in our homes and lives. Father Pio taught with profound clarity that sin weakens the soul's natural defenses against evil. He understood that beyond their physical and psychological impact, substances and materials associated with addictive behaviors create spiritual openings that allow negative influences to gain footholds in our lives. These influences then extend to affect our homes and families. What specific items fall into this category? The most obvious include substances used in addiction, illegal drugs and paraphernalia, excessive alcohol, and similar items. These substances don't merely affect the body. They impair judgment, weaken willpower, and create spiritual vulnerabilities. Father Pio observed that addiction often creates a spiritual vacuum that negative forces readily fill. Also in this category are materials that promote or enable sexual vices, pornography in any form, objects associated with sexual behaviors that degrade human dignity, or items that commercialize and objectify God's gift of human sexuality. These don't merely affect the individual, they create a spiritual atmosphere in the home that can impact everyone present, even those unaware of their presence. Gambling paraphernalia that feeds addictive behavior, objects associated with excessive materialism or greed, and tools used for dishonest gain would also concern Father Pio. He recognized that these objects represent more than mere physical items. They embody spiritual choices that open doors to further spiritual compromise. What makes these objects particularly dangerous is that they often lead to a progressive spiritual deterioration. What begins as a minor compromise can develop into deeper spiritual entanglements over time. Father Pio would often say, "The enemy first suggests, then entices, then enslaves." Objects associated with vice often facilitate this progression. I want to approach this topic with compassion rather than condemnation. Many people struggling with these issues are already carrying heavy burdens of shame and guilt. The goal isn't to add to this burden, but to illuminate a path towards spiritual freedom. Father Pio was known for his extraordinary compassion toward those struggling with sin, while remaining absolutely clear about the spiritual dangers involved. If you recognize items in this category within your home, Consider these steps. First, acknowledge the spiritual reality of how these objects may be affecting your home environment. Then make a firm decision to remove them completely, not hiding them temporarily, but eliminating them permanently. This decisive action is itself a powerful spiritual statement. Most importantly, don't face these challenges alone. Seek appropriate support, spiritual counseling, addiction recovery resources, accountability partners, or professional help depending on the specific situation. Padre Pio always emphasized that spiritual healing works hand in hand with practical action and community support. For those supporting loved ones struggling with these issues, remember Father Pio's approach of unwavering love combined with clear boundaries. Pray for those affected, maintain firm but compassionate limits, and recognize that your own spiritual practices can help create protected spaces amid difficult circumstances. As we move toward our conclusion, remember that identifying and removing these 5 categories of objects is not about living in fear or superstition. Rather, it's about creating homes that truly serve as spiritual sanctuaries, places where divine peace can flourish and where your family can grow in spiritual health and wholeness. As we reach the conclusion of our journey together, let's take a moment to review the 5 categories of objects that Father Pio warned could be inviting spiritual darkness into your home. Each of these seemingly innocent items might be affecting the spiritual atmosphere where you and your loved ones live, pray, and grow. First, we discussed books and esoteric items, those occult, New Age, or spiritually questionable materials that might be sitting innocently on your shelves. Second, we explored images and decorations that carry spiritual significance beyond their aesthetic appeal, artwork, statues, and symbols that may be projecting spiritual dissonance into your living space. Third, we examined entertainment with negative spiritual influences, music, movies, and media that might be gradually desensitizing your spirit to darkness. Fourthly, we considered gifts and inherited items that may carry spiritual attachments from their previous owners. And finally, we addressed items associated with various forms of vice that create significant spiritual vulnerabilities. Remember Father Pio's profound wisdom. The devil is like a chained dog. He can only bite those who come within his reach. By identifying and removing these objects from your home, you're essentially stepping away from that chain's reach, creating a spiritual boundary that protects you and your loved ones. If you've recognized any of these items in your home, now is the time to take action. Begin with prayer, asking for divine guidance and protection as you undertake this spiritual cleansing. Remove problematic objects completely and decisively. After removing them, consider having your home blessed or performing your own prayer of consecration, dedicating your living space as a sanctuary for God's presence. Fill the spaces left by these removed objects with items that invite spiritual light, sacred art, blessed objects, materials that inspire virtue and goodness. Create an environment where prayer flows naturally and divine peace is palpable. The transformation many experience after this spiritual house cleaning can be remarkable. Improve sleep, reduce conflict, a newfound sense of peace, and a deepened prayer life. If this message has touched your heart today, I invite you to write "Home Protected" in the comments below. Your comment helps this important message reach others who may be experiencing unexplained spiritual heaviness in their homes. Share this video with someone you care about who might benefit from this knowledge. Your simple act of sharing could be the answer to their unspoken prayers. I also invite you to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and activate notifications so you won't miss future guidance on protecting your spiritual well-being. Each video we share is designed to strengthen your faith and provide practical spiritual tools for everyday challenges. Let me leave you with this final thought from Father Pio. Pray, hope, and don't worry. As you create a spiritually protected home, trust that divine assistance is always available to those who sincerely seek it. Your home is meant to be a place of peace, love, and spiritual growth, a little heaven on earth for you and your family. With awareness and decisive action, you can restore and maintain this sacred purpose. May God bless your home and everyone who dwells within it. Until next time, remember that spiritual protection is both your right and your responsibility. Peace be with you.